When I first saw the listing, I thought it was a joke. It was buried between ads for night shift warehouse workers and no experience required data entry scams. The title read, "Courier needed, must be comfortable working nights." Routes include remote locations. No questions asked. But what caught my eye wasn't the bolded pay rate $2,000 per week. It was the strange little line beneath it, almost like a disclaimer. Must not be easily frightened. The recipients are very quiet. I was desperate. Rent was overdue. My car had a cracked radiator, and the temp jobs I'd been cycling through barely covered instant noodles. So yeah, I applied. An hour later, I got a call from a woman with a voice like gravel. She never gave a name, just asked if I had a reliable vehicle, if I could follow strict instructions, and if I'd ever been convicted of trespassing. I said, no, yes, and no. Then report to Lot B of the Old County Depot at 10 p.m. tonight, she said. The van will be waiting. Keys in the visor. Route list on the seat. Then she hung up. No forms. No interview. No HR nonsense. I just showed up. It was exactly how she'd said. An unmarked white van, parked between two rusted-out trailers. I peeked inside and found a clipboard with a map, some papers, and a tightly sealed black box in the back. No logos, no labels. There was something about it, something wrong. I could feel it before I even touched it, like static in the air, or the kind of pressure you feel just before a storm hits. That first night, I only had one stop. A broken gravel road that twisted deep into the forest until the trees got too thick to let the moonlight in. I didn't have GPS. The map was printed in old ink, with handwritten notes and turns that didn't match anything on Google. When I finally found the cabin, it looked abandoned. No lights, no sounds, just a mailbox with a faded name scrawled in marker. Dr. H. Vale, do not disturb. I got out, left the package on the porch, like the instructions said. Knocked once, and turned to go. But just as I was climbing back into the van, I heard the door creak open. I didn't look. I told myself not to. I turned the key in the ignition, gripped the steering wheel, and drove away as fast as I could without fishtailing into a ditch. There was no reason to be afraid. No one had said I couldn't look, but something deep inside me, instinct maybe, screamed not to turn around. When I returned the van that night, there was a fresh clipboard waiting on the seat. This one had 5 stops, and a stapled packet. On top, rules for night delivery personnel. It read. I didn't read them until the next night, and I wish I'd read them sooner, because I was already being watched, and one of the names on that new delivery list, it was mine. The second night, I showed up early. The van was already there, humming quietly like it had never been turned off. A manila folder sat on the dashboard this time, with my name written in black ink, Nate. That was the first time anyone had used my name. Inside the folder was another route map, 5 packages labeled with names and hand-drawn directions, and a thick packet of paper clipped in the middle. Delivery protocol, level 3, black. Recipients. The pages were yellowed at the edges like they'd been photocopied too many times. It didn't read like any employee manual I'd seen. No boilerplate HR stuff. No welcome message. Just a series of cold, numbered instructions under a bold heading. Rules for night delivery. Read carefully. Do not deviate. Do not open any package. No matter what you hear, feel, or think you saw, do not open them. These are not for you. Do not attempt daytime delivery. Recipients are only active between 11:30 p.m. and 3:30 a.m. Deliveries outside this window may result in exposure. If a recipient opens the door, do not speak unless spoken to. Their words may not be for you. Their voice may not sound like theirs. Do not look inside the homes, even if invited, especially if invited. If the package begins to move, hum a low hum. One continuous note. Do not stop until movement ceases. If your name appears on a delivery manifest, report immediately to your route manager. Do not attempt delivery. Do not approach the listed address. Trust the map, not the roads. GPS and digital maps do not reflect the current boundaries. If the path seems longer than it should be, keep driving. That was it. No signature, no explanation. Just a final sentence written in all caps across the bottom. Failure to follow these rules will result in consequences. I reread them 3 times before I started the engine. Something about the wording unrecoverable made my skin crawl. The first stop was easier than the night before. A farmhouse with rotting shutters and a driveway overtaken by weeds. I left the package on the porch, knocked once, and turned around. As I was walking back to the van, I heard a creak behind me. Not the door, the floorboards. Like something shifting weight, I hummed, just in case. Nothing else happened. The second stop was worse. It was an apartment building, the Belrose Residences, but the structure didn't match any city zoning. Maps I could find later. The elevator worked, but the buttons had no numbers. Just floors labeled by symbols. Some looked like inverted letters, others like runes scratched into metal. I delivered to Unit Theta to 3, leaving the box outside the door. As I turned to leave, I heard a faint voice from inside. It said, "You brought it back to me." The voice was my mother's. My mother died in 2016. I broke into a full sprint before I could process what I'd heard. I didn't stop until I was back in the van with the doors locked. Third delivery, a mausoleum, not a house, not a building, an actual stone crypt in the middle of a forgotten cemetery. No lights, no paths, just the faint outline of the name on the arch, Marlowe. The box thudded against the stone when I set it down. The sound echoed far too long. I turned to leave, but then I saw it. A figure, deep inside the mausoleum, still, as a statue. Too far to see clearly, but it was watching me, and when I blinked, it was gone. By the time I got back to the depot that night, the hum in my ears wouldn't stop. Not tinnitus. This was different. It wasn't in my ears. It was in my bones. The woman with the gravel voice was waiting this time, standing by the edge of the lot, smoking a crooked cigarette. "You followed the rules," she said. Not a question. I nodded. I didn't trust my voice. She exhaled. Smoke that didn't rise clung to her like fog. "Good. That's how you stay alive." "Who are these people?" I finally asked. "The ones we deliver to." She looked at me for a long time, then said, "They're not people. Not anymore." She walked off after that. No explanation. No answers. Just vanished into the dark edge of the lot like she'd stepped off the world. That was the moment it became real for me. This wasn't some underground courier gig for weirdos or off-grid survivalists. I was delivering 2 entities that didn't belong to the living world anymore. And the job wasn't about logistics. It was about containment, about keeping certain doors shut, and I was just the delivery boy holding the lock in place. I didn't mean to break the rule. It was my 4th night on the job, and everything had gone strangely smooth. No voices, no figures, no movement in the boxes, just eerie silence and endless BACKROADS. My first 3 drops were uneventful, almost routine. I was starting to feel numb to it, like the horror had softened into habit. The 4th stop was the one that did it, an old Victorian house at the end of a cul-de-sac that didn't show up on any map. The road curved like a spiral, looping inward until it ended in a circle of identical houses, all colorless, windowless, with warped fences and hedges trimmed into unnatural shapes. This house was No. 44. The map said to leave the box on the doorstep, knock once, and walk away. Simple. I set the box down, knocked, turned, then I heard a voice. Wait. It wasn't loud. It wasn't threatening. It sounded like a little girl, soft, sad. I froze. My hand hovered just above the van door handle. I was halfway in, but something in me, something stupid, made me turn around. And that's when I saw her, a girl, maybe 8 years old, standing just inside the open doorway. Pale skin, dark eyes, no whites, no reflection, like two deep wells punched into her face. She didn't speak again, just stared. My throat was dry. I am not supposed to talk unless spoken to. She tilted her head slightly. You were spoken to. I should have left. Every instinct screamed to get in the van and go. But the way she looked at me, it didn't feel threatening. It felt lonely. So I broke the rule, just a little. I asked, "Are you okay?" That's it. One question. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Instead, something moved behind her, out of sight. A second face. No, a mask. Hanging upside down in the hallway, like it was suspended from the ceiling. Its jaw dangled open. Its eyes were mine. I backed up, fast, slamming the door and peeling away so hard I nearly hit a street lamp. The road didn't spiral out like before. It just stretched endlessly in both directions. My GPS flickered to static. The van's clock froze at 12:13 a.m. and wouldn't change. I drove straight for 20 minutes before the dashboard blinked back to life. When I got to the depot, there was no new clipboard, no woman, just silence. I checked the cargo. One box left, only it wasn't where I'd placed it. It was now sitting in the passenger seat. The label had changed. It read, "Return to sender." Below that, a single line written in red ink, "You were spoken to." I didn't sleep that day. I sat in my apartment with all the lights on, watching the corners of every room, waiting for something to come crawling out. It didn't, but the next night, the box was still there, exactly where I left it, waiting. I didn't take the box back inside the depot. I couldn't even bring myself to touch it. It stayed in the van overnight, and by the time the next shift rolled around, it was still sitting there on the passenger seat, exact same angle, label perfectly centered. Return to sender. The woman wasn't at the lot. No one was. But there was a new manifest taped to the rearview mirror. 3 deliveries. The first 2 were crossed out in thick black marker. Only one was left. Lot 44, Spiral Street. Deliver personally. Do not leave unattended. There was no route manager's signature, just a jagged symbol scrawled at the bottom. It looked like a spiral with an eye at the center. That night, as I approached Spiral Street, I noticed something wrong with the headlights. They weren't reaching far enough. Even on full beam, the road ahead stayed dark. It was like the night swallowed the light faster than it should. By the time I reached Lot 44 again, the house looked different. Taller maybe, like it had stretched upward. The windows were darker. No movement this time. No girl. I clutched the box, still cold, despite the heat outside, and walked to the door. I was supposed to hand deliver it this time. The wood of the porch felt damp, like it had just rained, but the sky was clear. I raised my hand to knock, and the door creaked open before I touched it. Inside, nothing but darkness. No lights, no shapes. Just a faint sound, humming. A single, low, continuous hum. The same kind I'd been told to do if the box started moving. Only now it was coming from inside the house. I stood there, holding the box, frozen between 2 choices: run or follow the rule. I stepped inside. The humming grew louder. The walls pulsed. I swear to God, they pulsed like lungs. The wallpaper peeled in slow, silent strips. The floorboards bowed beneath my feet, like they were inhaling with me on top. At the end of the hallway, a door opened. The girl was there again, but she wasn't standing. She was floating about 3 inches off the ground, hair limp, eyes wider than before, mouth open but silent. Behind her stood the thing wearing my face. It wasn't a mask. It was me, but wrong stretched. Split down the middle like it was stitched from 2 versions of myself. It held out its hand. I gave it the box. The moment it touched it, the humming stopped. The girl blinked. Her feet touched the floor again. and just like that, the door slammed in my face. I stumbled back down the porch, heart pounding, lungs tight. When I reached the van, I saw a note tucked under the windshield wiper. It was written on the same yellowed paper as the original rules list, but this one had a new rule added at the bottom, handwritten in red. Rule 8. If a return occurs, you must complete the exchange in person. Failure to do so may result in replacement. Replacement. That word rattled around in my head the whole ride back. I parked the van, got out, and this time she was waiting. The woman with the gravel voice. "You got lucky," she said, lighting another crooked cigarette. "That wasn't luck," I whispered. "That was something else." She shrugged. "It doesn't want you yet, that's all." I didn't like the way she said yet. As I turned to leave, she added one more thing. "Next time you hear the humming, make sure it's coming from you. If it starts humming on its own," she didn't finish. "Just let the silence hang there like smoke." The next day, I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with the rule sheet, the delivery manifest, and the note that mentioned replacement, trying to piece together what I'd gotten myself into. But every answer led to more questions. What were these packages? Why did the deliveries feel like rituals? What was I exchanging and with who or what? I kept thinking about that little girl, the way her body floated, the thing behind her that looked like me. Something was wrong with the very fabric of this job, like I'd stepped sideways into a world just barely out of sync with ours. By noon, I cracked. I drove back to the depot, not for my shift, just to look around. It was empty, just like it always was during daylight hours. No sign of life, no other drivers, no security. But there was a small trailer tucked behind the shipping containers I hadn't noticed before. Its windows were blacked out with tape. The door had a keypad lock, but it hung slightly ajar, like someone left in a hurry. Inside, I found rows of filing cabinets. No labels, just drawers. All of them locked except one. It was labeled, unclaimed. Manifests deceased couriers. The hair on my arms stood up. Inside were dozens of folders. Some had photos. Others just had manifests with delivery routes, names of recipients, and a last known delivery location. Some of them were scratched out in red pen. The same symbol from my delivery sheet was scrawled over their names. The spiral with an eye. One folder had a Polaroid tucked inside. A man with a crooked smile, maybe mid-30s, holding up a package in front of Spiral Street. His name was Eric Cole. The final delivery on his manifest matched mine exactly. Lot 44. The floating girl. The box that HUMMED. Except, unlike me, his entry had a final note scrawled in the margins. Failed to return. Subject absorbed. Absorbed. I flipped through more pages, finding other phrases like it. Exposure entity, mimicry, observed. Attempted conversation loop, initiated. Replaced during return sequence. One stuck out. Subject responded to recipient's question. Mimic began delivery protocol in subject's place. I felt cold. Was that what I saw behind the girl? A version of me that wasn't me. Something pretending. Or worse, replacing. Back in the front office, I found a rusted filing box labeled Security 1996 to 2008. Inside were old cassette tapes, delivery van footage. Most were blank. Others had static. But one was labeled Route 6, Incident Playback. I found an old TV with a built-in tape player and pushed it in. The footage was grainy, black and white, and jumpy like it had been copied too many times. A man stepped out of a delivery van, dark hoodie, pale hands. He looked normal except his face was just slightly wrong, like it didn't fit his skull. He walked to a door, dropped off a package, then turned and looked directly at the camera. Not where the camera should be, but exactly where I was sitting. The screen glitched. Then his mouth began to move, like he was speaking backwards. The footage froze, and a final frame blinked on screen. He is delivering now. I ejected the tape and ran outside. My hands were shaking. My reflection in the window didn't match my movements for half a second. It was subtle, but I saw it. The mimic. I didn't go back to my apartment. I didn't want to bring any of this home. Instead, I drove to a cheap motel on the outskirts of town and locked myself in with a baseball bat and a thermos of gas station coffee. Around 3 a.m., I got a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. When I finally listened, there was no voice. Just humming. One continuous note. It didn't come from the phone speaker. It came from the other side of the motel door. I held my breath, turned off every light, waited. The humming stopped at exactly 3:30 a.m. That was the second rule. They only move between 11:30 and 3:30. I survived the night. Barely, but now I knew. Whatever was behind that door wasn't just watching anymore. It had learned how to find me. And I wasn't the first courier it had followed. I didn't go in for my shift the next night. I left the van where I found it. Left the manifest, the key, everything. I thought if I ignored it, if I walked away, maybe it would all stop. But it didn't. At 11:31 p.m., the motel room phone rang again. I didn't answer. At 11:33, the hallway lights flickered once, then died. At 11:34, I started humming. Not because the box was moving. There was no box this time. I was humming because something was moving in me, like it had left a residue. Or worse, a door open. I packed a bag and left the motel at 11:45. Barely dodging the shadow I saw standing beneath the flickering exit sign. It didn't follow. Not right away, but the feeling never left me. I drove until sunrise, then parked at a rest stop where truckers were gathering for morning coffee. I figured the presence of others would protect me. It didn't. At 7:02 a.m., one of the truckers, an older guy with tired eyes, sat across from me in the diner booth and said, "You're humming in your sleep." I hadn't been asleep. I asked him what he meant. He just stared. Then he reached into his coat and slid something across the table. A small black envelope, the kind that holds a manifest. "I had the job too," he said. "Before you." I hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a single line. Delivery rerouted. Final stop. Below it, "Do not bring yourself. Bring what's left." I asked the man what that meant. What what's left meant. He didn't answer. He just stood and walked out into the parking lot. By the time I followed, he was gone. No truck. No sign he'd ever been there. Only a low hum in the air. That night, I made a choice. I went back to the depot, but I didn't check in. I broke in through the rear fence, flashlight in hand, crowbar tucked into my coat. I wasn't playing by their rules anymore. Inside, the main trailer lights flickered erratically, casting long, crawling shadows across the floor. The filing cabinets were open this time. Dozens of folders strewn across the room like someone had searched through them in a panic. A rusted hatch behind the shelves was slightly ajar. I hadn't seen it before. I pulled it open and descended a set of iron stairs. What I found underground wasn't a storage room. It was wrong. A concrete chamber filled with hundreds of black packages, all identical, stacked floor to ceiling, humming softly, and on the far wall mirrors, each one showing a courier. Not a reflection, different people, all standing, all still, all humming. Then I saw me, not the current me, not the one holding the flashlight, but a version of me, arms limp, face blank, mouth open in a perfect O, vibrating with sound. The humming grew louder the closer I stepped until it matched my voice, matched my breath. I dropped the flashlight. It clattered to the floor, the beam swinging wildly. In that moment, something blinked in the mirror. Not a reflection, a person, or the shape of one. It stepped forward slowly, deliberately, its form shifting as it moved, like it hadn't decided what to look like yet. It chose me down to the shoes, the jacket, the scar on my chin. Then it smiled. Not like a person smiles, like something trying to copy a smile from memory. and it began to hum. The others in the mirrors hummed back in unison. I turned and ran up the stairs, through the lot, into the van. I didn't stop until I hit the freeway and merged with traffic, but when I looked in the rear view mirror, he was sitting in the back seat, not moving, not blinking, just humming. I didn't stop driving until morning. The thing in the back seat had vanished by the time I pulled off the highway. I didn't see it leave. 1 second it was there, the next it wasn't. No open doors, no sound, just empty air and that fading echo of the hum. I parked behind an old gas station and sat there for an hour, waiting for my hands to stop shaking. Then I made a decision. I called the woman, the one with the gravel voice. I still had her number from that first night. I don't know why I kept it. Some part of me must have known I'd need it again. She picked up on the first ring. No hello, no greeting, just, "Where are you?" "I saw what's under the depot," I said. "The mirrors, the copies. What the hell are they?" Silence. "Then, you weren't supposed to see that." "No kidding," I snapped. "You said follow the rules." I did, mostly, but that thing, it wore my face. More silence. Then she said something I didn't expect. "Did it follow you?" My breath caught. I think so." A sigh on the other end. Not frustration, resignation. Then she said, "Meet me where it all started. Tonight, midnight." She hung up. Where it all started, the only place that made sense was Spiral Street, Lot 44. I didn't want to go back there. Every part of me screamed to run, to disappear, but I needed answers. I arrived at 11:58 p.m. The house looked smaller now, dull, like it had lost some of its presence. She was already waiting on the porch, smoking, watching me. She didn't look surprised. "You're early," she said. "I didn't want to be," I muttered. "What is this place?" She took a long drag from the cigarette. Then, a holding zone, a threshold. "We deliver to what's between." "Between what?" I asked. "Life and whatever comes after." The air around us felt heavier. The trees seemed to lean in. "How long have you been doing this?" I asked. She didn't answer, just looked up at the house. "They started coming through a decade ago," she finally said. "First in dreams, then on roads, then in reflections." I swallowed hard. "The mimics. They're not mimics," she said. "They're echoes, fragments. When the original souls leave, sometimes a residue remains. It wants form, purpose, voice. So we deliver boxes to them." "No," she said. "We deliver pieces. Things they lost. Memories, names, faces." She turned to me. Her eyes looked older now, exhausted. "That's what the boxers are. Pieces of identity. Of people who got too close, who lingered too long. That's..." When I noticed the scar on her neck, it wasn't a scar. It was a seam, thin, pale, almost invisible, but definitely stitched. I stepped back. "You're not." "I was the first courier," she said softly. "I broke the rules. I spoke too much. I listened when I shouldn't have." I stared at her. "You're one of them." "I'm between," she said. "Not echo, not human. That's why I can still help. But I'm fading." "Why tell me all this?" I asked. "Why now?" She looked past me, toward the road. "Because it already knows you're unstable. The hum is in you now, and once it chooses you fully," she trailed off. A second later, she lit another cigarette with shaking hands. "There's a final rule they never write down," she whispered. "What is it?" She looked me in the eye. "Eventually, every courier delivers themselves," and then she disintegrated. Right there, no scream, no flash, just a sudden collapse into ash, cigarette and all, blown silently across the porch by a wind I never felt. I stood there alone, listening, until I heard it again, behind me, the hum. Not from the house, from inside me. I didn't run at first. I just stood there, staring at the spot where she'd vanished. The ash blew across the porch like fine powder, already vanishing into the wood grain. Her voice echoed in my head. Eventually, every courier delivers themselves. The hum inside me was getting louder. It wasn't coming from my throat, not exactly. It was deeper, from my chest, maybe deeper than that. Like something below my lungs was vibrating in response to a sound I couldn't fully hear yet. I stumbled off the porch, down the crooked steps, and toward the van. I don't know why I thought it would help. The keys were gone. The tires were flat. It didn't matter, because something was waiting in the driver's seat. Me, or again, the thing wearing my face. It didn't turn to look at me, just sat there, both hands on the wheel, head tilted slightly toward the windshield like it was waiting for a green light. The hum got louder. I turned and ran, not down Spiral Street, not toward the depot, just away, into the woods. I ran until branches cut my face and roots tripped my feet, but the hum followed. Not from behind me, from everywhere. The trees started to shimmer in the dark, bending slightly, as if reacting to the vibration, like the whole forest was breathing in rhythm. With me, I fell, scraped my palms raw, and when I looked up there was a package on the ground, black, seamless dot with my name on it. Nathaniel ROSS Final. The label was wet, not with rain, with something thicker. I didn't touch it, but it pulsed, and suddenly I knew this wasn't something I could deliver anymore. This was me. This box was me. What was left of me. I had a choice then. I could follow the rules, finish the job, deliver what remained of myself, and be done with it. Or I could do something no courier was ever meant to do. Break the final rule. I picked up the box. It was lighter than I expected. Warm. I carried it to the edge of a cliff I didn't know was there until the trees suddenly vanished and the earth just dropped into nothing. Below was fog. Endless. Thick. The kind of fog that didn't rise from the earth, sank from the sky. I held the box out over the edge. My arms trembled, and that's when I heard the voice again. Not the girl, not the mimic. It was my own voice, from behind me. Don't. I didn't turn around. I just stared into the fog. You're already halfway in, it said. You drop that, and you won't exist anywhere, not even between. I still didn't turn, but I asked, what happens if I deliver it? A pause. Then, you'll forget everything. You'll be hollow, but you'll feel full. You'll hum without knowing why. I closed my eyes. It sounded peaceful, but that was the trap, wasn't it? That's what they wanted. Obedience wrapped in silence. Another courier on the list. I opened the box. A burst of cold hit me like a punch. Inside wasn't anything physical. No item, no artifact. It was a memory of me, as a child, lost in a mall, crying, searching for my mother's hand. Except in this memory, I never found her. I just kept walking, and humming. I dropped the box, not over the cliff onto the ground behind me, and I crushed it under my boot. The hum stopped, so did the trees, the wind, even the mimic silence, like death itself. Then the forest peeled back, literally peeled, like someone tearing away wallpaper from reality. Beneath it was a road, the same one from my first night, the first delivery. A van waited at the end, keys in the visor, a single stop on the manifest, but this time, it didn't say who the package was for. It just said, Survivor, one time only. I don't know what waits at the end of that road, but I started the engine, and I drove. The road felt endless, winding, dark, no signs, no sound, except the tires and the quiet drone of the engine. At some point, I realized the gas gauge wasn't moving, and the clock on the dashboard just blinked 12 o'clock, over and over. I didn't know where I was driving, but the road kept unfolding, like it wanted me to keep going. Eventually, the van slowed on its own. The brakes sighed. The headlights dimmed. I stopped in front of a small structure, a one-room cabin, rusted tin roof, a single door, already cracked open like it had been expecting me. No address, no number, just one last package on the passenger seat, wrapped in black. I didn't pick it up. Not yet. I got out, walked around to the front of the van, and stood there, just listening. Everything was quiet, except something faint, not the hum, a knock from inside the cabin. 3 soft knocks, then silence. I turned and looked at the package. Still there? Still sealed, but now there was a return label, delivered to Nathaniel Ross. Sender, unknown. I stepped back. No. The door to the cabin creaked wider. It was dark inside, but I could see something sitting in the center of the room, a chair facing the door. Something was in it, waiting. I don't remember deciding to pick up the package, but suddenly it was in my hands, heavy this time, cold. I stepped through the door and sat down across from the figure. It was a man, my age, my face, but older, empty-eyed, lips slightly parted like he was mid-breath, but hadn't finished it in years. I held out the box. He didn't take it. He just looked at me and whispered, "Eventually, every courier delivers themselves." I dropped the box at his feet, and when I stood up, he did too. He walked out the door, got into the van, started it, and drove away. I stayed, because the package wasn't for him. It never was. It was for me. The room shifted around me. The walls pulsed, like lungs. The air grew thick, and somewhere deep inside the dark, I heard the first knock again, then another, and another, and another. New packages are being loaded now. I can hear them. I can feel them. And I know, soon, another courier will arrive, as confused as I was, as curious, and I'll be the one waiting in this chair, ready to greet them, with the same line they all hear. Eventually, you're late. The dead don't wait forever.